Gary Parrish, welcome back. CBS Sports, Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds. Leaky Black. Matt Norlander is here with me, or he was a second ago. If you watch it on YouTube, you know what to do to that like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, I sure would appreciate it if you do that while you're here. Let's get into it. Top-ranked teams. I don't think you got to be a historian or even like a diehard college basketball fan to understand that top-ranked teams don't lose to unranked teams too often. And they do it twice in a row in the same basketball week, even more infrequently. Before today, it had only happened 4 times in the history of the Associated Press Top 25 poll, but now the number is 5 because just 4 days after top-ranked Kansas lost 76-63 at unranked Creighton on Wednesday night, top-ranked Kansas lost 76-67 at unranked Missouri on Sunday afternoon. Norlander, to the best of your ability, please tell me what's wrong with our top-ranked Jayhawks, and how concerning is this very rare 2-game losing streak to unranked opponents by a top-ranked team?
We're not doing concerning. It's not happening on the
I need to know how concerning.
Not happening, and it's not happening in early December. However, it is notable all the same. Missouri fans, the last time we started a podcast talking about your team, well, at least half talking, because the reason why we're starting on it isn't Missouri. One is that Kansas has lost consecutive games, both on the road, by the way. I don't believe you trusted that building. This guy over here. Well, I don't necessarily just trust buildings. I put my faith and confidence in the human beings that make these results possible. But nonetheless, it's a 4-1 weekend for your boy over here. Kansas.
What weekend for your boy?
4-1. Did I not go 4-1?
Did you?
Well, you know what? I think I was going to go 4-1, and then UCLA won. So I think it was 3. I think it was 3-2. I think so.
Okay, Norlander, let's just look at this now.
We can sort this out on the Friday show. We don't need to be diving into the Final 4-1.
Well, I'm not going to let you just pop on a Sunday show, talk about I went 4-1 and not hold you accountable. This feels like a presidential debate. You think you can just say whatever you want to say, whether it's true or not.
All right, go ahead. Bring it up. Sorry, Missouri fans. You're going to have to wait. Parrish he's got to arbitrate and legislate the Final 4-1. Go ahead.
This is not a presidential debate. You can't just say whatever you want to say, whether it's true or not be held accountable. Okay, you had Providence +2. Tell me how that went.
That was I don't have my soundboard ready, but that was not good for me.
Okay, you had Marquette -5. Congratulations. So did I.
I was wrong.
You had Kentucky +6. Congratulations.
We'll get there, UK fans.
So did I. We both had Oregon -2, so that didn't work out for us because of a bank in. We'll get to that one later. Yep. And then you had Missouri, and I had Kansas. So I think we both went 3-2.
We did. We both went 3-2. I remain down 2 to you. We'll get to that on the Friday.
This is not a presidential debate where you think you could just come on here and say whatever you want to say. How
Kansas
are you?
Kansas, the 5th time an AP top-ranked team has lost consecutive games to unranked opponents in the same week. Last happened in 2003 with Florida. Prior to that, we're going back to when GP was like 10 years old. 82-83 UNLV. Duke in the late 70s, and UCLA under John Wooden are the other schools to do that. I did hear on ESPN earlier on Sunday that with UConn being the second-ranked team and it lost 3 in a row in Maui, I know Kansas is the top-ranked team. There had never been a season before in the history of men's D1 where the number 1 and the number 2 ranked teams in the same season suffered a 3-loss and a 2-loss winning streak, all to unranked opponents. So we've already made some history there. Congrats to Missouri on its 76-67 win. Tigers are now 8-1. Let's focus on Kansas before we talk Dennis Gates' team, though. As for the game specifically, it was more about Mizzou's defense than anything, to be honest. But Kansas only got to the foul line 11 times, and I don't think it was like this huge tilted whistle and all that kind of stuff. And if Kansas fans want to make a big deal out of that, you've got the rest of the entire Big 12 and, frankly, Missouri fans that will laugh at you for that, considering the tremendous home venue you play at, but which seems to obviously benefit you in many, many ways. Some of them even of cosmic of nature. There's nothing like playing inside of Allen Fieldhouse. But only getting to the line 11 times, Missouri was 26 of 31 from the line. But my biggest takeaway on the Kansas side is they're 7-2. They weren't. It's not that they weren't competitive in either game. They definitively lost both of these games against Creighton and Missouri. Creighton, we'll get to the Blue Jays before we're out of here because we've got updates on the Blue Jays roster situation, which is problematic. And Mizzou, both outside the top 40 at KenPom as we speak in the here and now. Both could easily make it as NCAA tournament teams, but we don't view either of these teams to be, in the thick of the Sweet 16 contender, top 25 level kind of programs there. Kansas loses by 13 against Creighton and then comes back a few days later on the road. And again, I'm just thrilled that we continue to get this game. The environment was incredible at Mizzou Arena, but it winds up being an 11-point difference after Mizzou got it big. If you're Kansas in this game, it is glaring what you did not get. Like the fact that you're getting 14 points from David Coit, a nice little development there, but I know KU fans are vexed because AJ Storr had 2, Rylan Griffin had 3. I'm talking points. And Zeke Mayo, who started, had 4. That's 9 combined points from your 3 crucial, critical, allegedly big-time offensive ads in the portal, and they are not giving you what you need here. Dickinson in this game, he had 19 points, 14 rebounds. He was really, really good. Harris was up and down, but I would designate him as a positive overall. KJ Adams, okay, but it can't be the same song again as last year. Cannot be that. So as we focus on KU first before getting to the good with Mizzou, that is my takeaway. You've got these transfers. They came in. They need to inject reliable offense game over game over game. And I look at this and I see a KU team that is 7 deep and getting nothing from the transfers that frankly collectively they probably need them to chip in minimally 20 points per game on average, and they had 9 here on Sunday.
You had a bunch of great little historical facts in there. I want to make sure you gave proper credit to Jared Burson. I know that's where you saw it.
What are you talking about?
All your little. This is the first time a number 1 ranked team has lost.
Credit to Jared Burson. Believe I got that from our CBS Sports folks as well, though. So yeah.
Well, I saw Jared Burson tweeted it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's happened 5 times now. This Kansas is the most recent. Before that, it was more than 20 years ago with a Florida team. Yep. Then you mentioned UNLV in 82-83, Duke in 78-79, and UCLA under John Wooden, the second best coach in UCLA history. They did that in 73-74. Worth noting, not to get sidetracked here, but Mick Cronin has never lost twice in the same basketball week to unranked teams while having the number 1 ranked team in the sport. So
we know this to be true.
Another positive for Mick and an obvious demerit for Coach Wooden with all due respect. I watched Bill's postgame press conference just to see sort of his mood, and he was great. He gave Missouri a lot of credit, but also acknowledged like we weren't very good. He even went out of his play. It was kind of funny. He was like, listen, I can sit, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, I could sit here and tell you that we sucked, but that would take all the credit away from them. But we did suck, but I want to give them credit. So he was trying to balance that. And he was real complimentary of Dennis trying to call the timeout late to let Kansas get off the court if they wanted to. But where he sort of settled into the press conference, I thought this was interesting. He sort of went on a little thing about like, who are we? What kind of team are we? Like, are we a tough team? Are we an athletic team? Are we a skilled team? Who are we? And as he put it, like, we can be any of those things, but we are not any of those things consistently right now. And this is something coaches talk about a lot, an identity. Like, what are we showing up with every day?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The shooting will come and go. And your best player isn't always going to play his best. Those things cannot be controlled. But what can you control that you show up with every day? Is it offensive rebounding? Is it on-ball defense? Is it taking care of the ball? Like, what is it that we know we are going to do this good thing well every time we step on a court? We're always going to be the toughest team. We're always going to be the fastest, whatever it is. And Bill's like, we don't have anything right now. And so what I took from that is he knows he's got good players, but he doesn't know what kind of team he has right now. And when you start breaking it down statistically, like this team was preseason number 1, is still technically number 1 in this moment, and they are not even top 10 in any major statistical category that you would look at to identify excellence other than offensive rebounding percentage, and they're 10th in that. This was fascinating. I went to barttorvik.com and just ran all the data from Wednesday through Sunday. just this 5-day stretch.
You say that, by the way. Like I went. It's like you're clocking into work.
I did.
On 7 different machines. You ran all the data.
I ran all the data.
You selected Wednesday's date and Sunday's date.
I know, but it sounds so much.
I ran all the data.
Yeah.
On my 4th cup of coffee. It's pre-dawn right now.
It sounds so much more important when I say it the way I say it.
Adjust my glasses.
I clicked this, and then I clicked that, and then I looked at everything that popped up on my screen. Yeah. And Kansas from Wednesday to Sunday was playing like the 163rd best team in the country, according to barttorvik.com. I believe they were 1 spot ahead of Mercer. Offense ranked 265th, defense 69th. So the issues are on the offensive end. 265 in the country over the past 2 games for Kansas. This was fascinating. 2-point field goal percentage over the past 2 games, 39.1%. Kansas has shot 53% or better from 2 in 3 straight seasons over the past week. It's 39.1, which ranks 299th nationally from Wednesday through Sunday. So maybe it's just a bad week. You know, UConn had one in Maui and then had a pretty good one this week. Yep. These things, and in the NBA, we see it even more dramatically. Like every time you click on Sports Center, they're like, and the Lakers look like real contenders. And then 2 weeks later, it's like, and the Lakers suck and LeBron needs to retire. And then it's like, oh my God, are the Bucks going to fire Doc Rivers? And then it's like, the Bucks have won 8 of 9 and they look like they're a real threat to the Celtics now. And so basketball has ups and downs in it. Perhaps this is just a down before the next up for Kansas, but obviously it was a historically bad week for the Jayhawks.
Quite the turnaround for Mizzou. Let's talk Tigers here. 8-1, have not lost since their season opening L at Memphis. We'll get to those Tigers before we get out of this show. There's something about Missouri playing a number 1 ranked team. Credit to Dennis Gates and his guys for getting this done. Forced KU into 22 turnovers. And man, that defense looked really, really good. This was Missouri's first win over a top-ranked team since 1997. But here's the thing. Missouri has 4 wins over number 1 team since 1990. Every single time it's happened, it's been Kansas that's been the victim as a number 1 team. In fact, Missouri, this is a consider they obviously hadn't played for much of the past decade plus. This was Missouri's first win over Kansas since 2012. And Missouri is 4-5 against Kansas when the Jayhawks are number 1 in the AP poll. 4-5. That's damn good when you're playing a number 1 team. Good on Dennis Gates and Mizzou fans for getting this kind of win. You know, Missouri fans are aware of this, but just to remind the rest of the country, if you were not completely dialed in or if you'd forgotten, Missouri did not beat an SEC opponent last season. In fact, this was the basis of why GP did not trust this building in the Final Four and 1 on Friday. Man, they were aching for a win like this. It's the first legitimate win on the schedule for Missouri. SEC strikes again, far and away the best basketball league, and it gets another win here. Tamar Bates, by the way, 5 steals, 29 points. Really, really, really good. Mark Mitchell had 17 points, 3 blocks. Anthony Robinson the second, 11 points, 5 steals for himself as well. And even Josh Gray had 10 boards in this one. So good win for Mizzou. See if you can build on this and continue to build out a good resume, because Missouri, we may look up and Missouri could be the 10th best team in the 16-team SEC, and the 10th best team in the 16-team SEC may well be good enough to make it into the NCAA tournament. A win like this goes a really, really long way. That is a seed line bump kind of victory. So congrats to Gates and that crew, because you needed this kind of victory, man. They were starving for it just to see. It's not even like you had to fight and claw and scratch and barely get out of the muck to get this victory. Yes, KU made a big run in the second half. They put the game in a little bit of doubt with, under 6 or 7 to go. But ultimately, I never felt as though Missouri was threatening going to lose this game. It didn't. It gets a big win. And obviously the border war, it's back, baby. Congrats, MIZ.
Just because we talked about the SEC so much, obviously another big win for that league. Missouri jumps up to 49th at KenPom. And right now, the SEC has 10 schools in the top 40. 10 schools in the top 38, technically. Now, one doesn't necessarily have anything to, or very little to do with the other. But just for some context, just know that if you are on Selection Sunday, like top 35 at KenPom, it's hard to get left out of the NCAA tournament unless you're a mid-major. Then they'll do it. Okay. But a power conference school in the top 35 at KenPom is like just about always going to make it. And right now, the SEC's got 10 in the top 40, 11, 12 in the top 45, 13 in the top 50, 14 in the top 51, and nobody lower than 68. The league is awesome. And, oh, by the way, when we update the AP poll tomorrow, it's probably going to be number 1 Tennessee and number 2 Kentucky, 2 SEC schools at the top. So this is another great day for the league, great moment for the league. I don't want to overstate it, but and what an awesome week for the league. I mean, they destroy the ACC in that challenge and then knock off number 1 with one of your bottom half team. Like, if I'm the SEC, after I get done complaining about the college football playoff bracket.
Look how good you got it in hoops, baby.
Look how good you got it in hoops.
Embrace the basketball world. Okay.
We are so improved as a league and so good as a league that a team that literally couldn't win one game in our league last season just knocked off the number 1 team in the country. Don't even talk to us.
By the way, speaking of the NCAA tournament, now to flip on that mic real quick. What is our poll question and what are our results right now for this episode?
All right. The poll question is, will Kansas end up with a 1 or 2 seed in March? And the viewers in the YouTube chat have said 59% to no, 41% to yes.
Do you agree or disagree, GP? Will Kansas be a 1 or 2 seed on Selection Sunday?
I'm going to say yes, but I don't feel as good about it today as I felt about it Wednesday morning. And I should point out, because the others did, and they were never wrong, even though Kansas was the preseason number 1 and a school that I felt had gotten enough big wins while starting 7-0.
Glad you brought that up. Are you thinking either number 3 or number 4 in your top 25-1 Monday morning for the Jayhawks?
I already had them down to number 6 as of Sunday morning. I know. I figured, because we usually do talk about this stuff. I haven't even looked the top 25-1 yet, because it's just there's a lot of nonsense in there today. Yeah. I'll tackle that when we're done with this, but I believe Kansas will be outside of the top 10. But I'm not comfortable betting against Bill Self, but I don't feel that confident. And this is what I was trying to say a minute ago. Yeah. Even while Kansas was starting 7-0, I felt like they had the win over Duke. They had some big enough wins to just stay there. You got a 0 in the loss column. You're preseason number 1. You haven't done anything to convince me yet you're not really the best team in the country, even if Auburn in that moment would have had the best resume at some point while Kansas was number 1. And those can be 2 different things. I don't know why that's so confusing for some Auburn fans. But like last week at some point, I said, I think Auburn has the best resume in the country, but that doesn't mean I don't still believe Kansas is the best team in the country. Like, you can hold both of those thoughts at the same time. I thought I explained that well, but maybe not. Or maybe not as simplified as I should have. Maybe I should have dumbed it down a little bit. Either way, while Kansas was starting 7-0 and getting good enough wins to stay there, they never looked great. It was never like, oh my God, look at these guys. Woo, boy, what has Bill Self put together here? They never popped the way we've seen some other teams pop so far this season. And then this week happens, and it's reasonable to wonder exactly where this thing's going to go, although you'd be having to be dismissive of 2 decades of history to think it's not going to end up okay.
Well, had Kansas not lost on Sunday, Kentucky fans have occupied the chat here. It is time. Gonzaga and Kentucky played a great one, a late one, deep into Saturday. UK won it in overtime. We got plenty to talk about there. But first, let's hear a word from our partners.
Historic rivals with unforgettable seasons meet in a game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA, December 14th on CBS.
Final score, Kentucky 90, Gonzaga 89 in overtime in Tory Black's hometown. UK trailed by as many as 18. They were without Lamont Butler from the jump, lost Kirk Kriisa after 27 minutes on the court. Regardless, they were able to force OT, and then they won it. So Mark Pope's Wildcats are now 8-1 with wins over Gonzaga, Duke, lone loss at Clemson by 4. It appears they're going to be ranked second in the AP poll on Monday.
Do you think? Because they do have the law. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, But
Oh,
in the
because
same week of time,
they did
I'm
lose.
just
That's
saying,
right. No, that's right.
let's let the table for our listeners. In the same week of time, they
You're right.
lost at Clemson, competitive game. They beat Gonzaga. They go 1-1. Maybe you're saying they deserve to be. Maybe they still will be too. It's very intriguing to see where Kentucky gets, because right now, I'll tell you this, a big picture, we're going to break this down. Kentucky fans are over the moon over how they won this game. And I think most of them probably believe, and this is not, I point this out as evidence not to take a direct shot, because it's not a shot. It's just a statement of fact. These kind of games and these kind of scenarios, they were not winning with John Calipari. Now, you don't want to be down by 16 at the break and all that kind of stuff, but the adjustments that Pope made, I think, for as big as the win is, it's more how they got it and the fact that they are in a situation now where they have confidence that this can happen. So anyway, we can get to more than just a second. You think Kentucky will be number 2 on Monday?
No, I appreciate you correcting me. I had placed the Clemson loss at a different point in time without properly pointing out. AP voters tend to just look at a snapshot of the week and they move you up and they move you down. I think you could reasonably have Kentucky at number 2 on Monday. Let me say that. Mm-hmm. They were number 4, I think, in the AP poll this week.
Yeah.
Auburn lost. Marquette lost.
Marquette did lose, and then Marquette,
Iowa State.
We're getting to you, Marquette. Don't worry.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of top teams have taken some L's here.
That's right. So listen, I think Kentucky will be in the top 5. I know I will have them in the top 5, and regardless of whether it's 2 or 5, like Kentucky, starting from nothing, when Mark Pope takes over this job from John Calipari, there's nobody playing for Mark Pope right now who played for John Calipari last season. I've referenced this before. If you take any notable team that took 7 or more transfers last season, none of them were good, except NC State got good and made the Final Four, or got hot and made the Final Four, but none of them were good enough to get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. That's a factual way to put it. Here's Kentucky right now. Their top 9 scorers are first-year transfers in the program, and they look great. Let me ask you this question, and you tell me if I'm being hyperbolic.
Okay.
Is this the answer to the question, what happens when you give a really smart, modern basketball mind incredible name, image, and likeness resources? This is what happens. Or, hey, we're 1 month into it. Let's not get too crazy.
More the latter than the former. And I even still think, listen, the roster they brought in is a quality roster, but I actually think it was not the best roster money could buy. I think Pope and his staff were very particular and specific about who they were going after. I mean, consider the fact that Amari Williams was the first commit. Trivia time, where did he play last season, audience? It was Drexel. So it is a really good roster with very intentional pieces, and they're gonna take some L's. There's gonna be some nights where they're not as well gelled. And again, they were down as much as 18 in this one. In fact, being down 16 at the half and winning the game tied the program record for best come from behind win at the half. But everyone knows the LSU game in 93 or 94, whatever, they were down by like 31 and they came back and won that game at LSU. That's by far the biggest comeback in program history. But it was, I tell you, watching the first half, Gonzaga was absolutely rolling, and it looked to be as though, okay, Gonzaga's got the dudes. Zag's got dudes. They're a top 5 team. Mark Few again is going to have an offense and an offensive team, which, by the way, could still be the case. However, it did not sustain over the course of this game. That is capable of making a Final Four and competing for a national championship. Then you get this just array of reliability from Kentucky. Consider this: you had 5 players in double figures in this game. That's the 4th time so far this season Kentucky's had at least 5 guys get to 10 points or more. Andrew Carr, who hit the bucket with less than a minute to go to get this game tied, and it basically helped send it to overtime. He had 19. Jackson Robinson, who was, I think, the most valuable player on the floor in this game, certainly for Kentucky. He had 18 points, 5 assists in the game. Owe had 13. Amari Williams had 12. Garrison had 10. And they gave him what I thought was a weak tech, but that's beside the point there. Kentucky got 48 points in the paint, and it was able to really assert a presence there that I wasn't sure it was going to be able to against Gonzaga, but doing this with no Lamont Butler, Kirk Risa leaves the game with 8 and change to go. Kentucky has subsequently announced that he's got to have surgery on his foot. He is out indefinitely. So surgery on the foot, he's sitting until we hit 2025 minimally. Hopefully it won't be too long, but for them to do that with no Butler and then no Kerr late was, I thought, incredible. Ike goes for 28 points, 11 boards. Nembhard had 13 points, 10 assists. Gonzaga did go cold. There's a weird trend at play here, GP, which I'm not sure if you're aware of or not. So
I'm aware of everything.
You are. Okay, what am I going to say?
I think what you were about to say was that
you're aware of everything. Let's hear it.
Kansas losing twice in the same basketball week as the number one team in the country to unranked team. It's the 5th time it's ever happened in the history of the AP poll, according to Jared Burson, who invented research. I was wrong.
All right, so
Jared Burson invented research.
Kentucky in this ball game holds Gonzaga to 6 of 27 from 3-point range. That's 22.2%. Kentucky on the year, refresh this right now. It's 3-point defense, which has some variance to it, no doubt about it. But at a certain point, you're scheming.
Do you trust that stat, that strat just blindly? Do you go, if somebody has a good 3-point defensive field goal percentage, do you automatically say they must be good at that?
Broadly speaking, data suggests that there is a lot of luck involved. I happen to believe this is one of those stats where you can actually dig in and there is some meaning behind it. That being said, on any given game, you will be potentially vulnerable to aggression to the mean there. Kentucky has the 6th best in the country right now, 25.3% 3-point percentage defense, but teams are just shooting poorly. It was the 6th time this season that a team did not hit 25% from beyond the arc against Kentucky. That's obviously having an impact on their ability to win there. And another huge stat here, credit to the entire world, because I guess ESPN first put it up there, but everyone ran with it after. Gonzaga had won 175 games in a row when it was up by at least 10 at the half. 175 of them. Did not get it closed out here. For Kentucky to be 2-0, I know I'm going long on your question, GP, but like the fact that Mark Pope has gone 2-0 against top 10 teams so far this season, they come back in this game and match statistically the biggest halftime deficit in program history at 16 points to get a win. They do it with one guy after another coming up, but to me it was Carr and Jackson Robinson as much as anyone else. I mean, what a freaking development for Kentucky. This is the kind of win where they'll probably tap into this and it will benefit them in some way, somehow on the road in the SEC, because it's going to be a gauntlet of a league. They're going to take losses in the conference, but every Kentucky fan was taking 8-1 through 9 games, no doubt about it. And to me, it was more about Kentucky coming back and ripping it away than Gonzaga blowing it. But you got to have some from column A and some from column B.
How about this? Just as we're talking through it, I don't know where Kentucky will be ranked in the AP poll on Monday. I think we've established that. But had they just won at Clemson earlier in the week and they were in the game, they would really be number one in the country.
They'd be number one. But they lost it, and that's fine. It was a competitive game. And for them, by the way, think about that. Clemson to Seattle, same week, a lot of travel. You take the split no matter what. Those are 2 tournament teams, 2 single-digit seeds. No shame in it.
Yeah. It's a great week. Wonderful. And like sometimes when it comes to this type of stuff, there's a be careful what you wish for thing. Like Pitt fans with Jamie Dixon.
Good Guster song, by the way. What you wish for. Continue.
Kentucky fans weren't necessarily wishing for Mark Pope, but they were wishing for something different. They wanted something new. They wanted something fresh to attach to. And they got it. And it is going, I think, better than anyone could have reasonably expected. He very quickly, Mark Pope came in and like won the hearts of the fan base. Like he won that over really quickly. Mm-hmm. And then he did enough in recruiting to obviously build a competent team. But what's interesting here is UK fans are almost looking at this from a totally different perspective. What have we said for 15 years about Kentucky? Did we ever say they're better than the sum of their parts?
Jeez.
we always look at them and go
maybe 11, 12, and 14, 15.
Yeah.
Now. And even then you wouldn't
even then like the parts were amazing. Like they had the best parts.
Incredible.
They had the best parts.
The parts have made like $3 billion in NBA contracts.
They always had so many parts, and to the extent you would ever get happy, it'd be like, man, this is going the way it should have gone, given that we have Anthony Davis and everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when it didn't go well, you'd be like, why do we have all these 5 stars? And now Kentucky fans get to enjoy what other programs get to enjoy sometimes, which is, hey, we don't have the best roster. We don't have the most NBA players. How many NBA players do they have? But we're great.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have any lottery picks, but we've got a great college basketball team. There's been so many times where Kentucky had all the lottery picks, but for whatever reason, not a great team. Now they might not have the lottery picks, but they got the great team. And just from, looking at it from a distance, it seems that they're having a good time with it.
Let's talk Gonzaga real quick. Gonzaga 7-2. Notable wins: Baylor, Arizona State. Damn right it qualifies at this point. At San Diego State. We'll see if the Indiana win winds up having some value there, but they won over the Hoosiers at Battle Fort Atlantis. They've got the OT loss to West Virginia, and then they lose here 90-89 in overtime. Unusual for Gonzaga to blow a game like this. EK is something else. Caleb Battle has his moments there, but Michael Ajayi in this kind of game, he only had 4 points. You expect more from him in this kind of spot. Certainly what they're going to ask from him overall. I also thought, I don't know, watching the game, credits to some of what Kentucky was doing. Pope threw a few different wrinkles, and there's no doubt about that. They actually, I don't know if it was literally like what happens at halftime in these games is teams go into locker rooms, player go into locker room, players amongst themselves. Coaching staff is normally in the coach's locker room, and that can last anywhere from 30 seconds to 8 minutes. And they're talking over, okay, what do we see? What do we want to tell the guys? And maybe everything that Kentucky needed to do happened in that halftime, or maybe they were prepped for it and were ready to adjust. It was really impressive by Kentucky staff to do that. But I was surprised at Gonzaga not driving in the lane and in the gear that I would have expected it to. And I think when Few and his staff go over and watch this tape, they're going to have regrets over some of the 3-point shots. I thought were actually bad shot selections. They should be launching, and they will. But I actually thought in the flow and the rhythm of the second half, they were not good looks there, and then a lack of aggression on the interior there. What were your quick takeaways on GU before we get to the rest of the weekend?
Well, first, I think it's important to point out, though they do have 2 losses in games they were favored to win, they still have 0 losses in regulation.
It's true.
I mean, by definition, they are one
team that did this like 2, 3, 4
I
years
remember.
ago. Was it Dayton or San Diego State? It was the year that we didn't have the tournament.
It was somebody.
Dayton,
or somebody hadn't lost
in regulation. They were undefeated. Gonzaga could be the next.
Yeah, so it's not ideal. Like, it's never good to lose games you're not supposed to lose. Like, let's keep it simple and obvious. But they are quite literally 1 shot or 1 stop in regulation away from being undefeated and ranked number 1 in the country right now. They got top 5 computer numbers, top 2 offense. They bombed Baylor to open the season. I don't know how good San Diego State, Indiana, those schools are, but I'm not worried about Gonzaga. Like, they'll get through this non-league schedule, however they do it, and then they'll get to the league and they'll run through that, and then they'll be in the Sweet 16 for the 10th straight year, and we'll wonder if this is the year they can go win it all. Like, I know this story. I've seen it before.
All right, a busy weekend. GP hasn't even considered what the hell his top 25-1 is going to look like on Monday morning. Let's help him try and sort this out. We got a bunch of stuff to get to in the Whiparound, and he may not be aware of this, but he doesn't have a choice. We are going to start after this break with his alma mater, which dropped a game on Sunday. But first, Nada, cue it up.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
All right, Norlander, Kansas and Gonzaga were not the only ranked teams to get upset this weekend. It also happened to Illinois, to Oregon, and to my University of Memphis Tigers. Fell at home to Arkansas State, got beat pretty much from start to finish in a season where the Tigers had went 2-1 in Maui, gotten some good wins, jumped in the AP poll. They now, unfortunately, have a quadrant 4 loss at home.
Is it really? It's quad 4.
I believe that's where it read.
That's tough. See, Arkansas State, our most dedicated listeners will recall this. Arkansas State, coached by Brian Hodgson, an assistant formerly at Alabama under Nate Oates, and previously to that at Buffalo. He had told me over the summer that he and his staff, because Arkansas State was expected to be the best team in the Sun Belt, went to every Power 5 team and basically the top 20 teams outside of the Power Conference structure you could possibly ask for and try to schedule games. He said, I'm not exaggerating. We went to every single one, and only 2 schools said they would play us. Oates did them a solid. They played Alabama and they lost. And then credit to Penny, who has scheduled aggressively in the non-conference. And if they can tap into some of that Maui stuff, it's going to benefit them because they're going to make the tournament. You got to win the games. We'll see. But credit to Penny. He didn't run from it. He brought him in. I assume it's a bye game. Arkansas State, nonetheless, a quad 4 loss at this point. Now, Penny and Tigers fans need to root for Arkansas State to basically roll in the Sun Belt to try and get that to quad 3, because you don't want a quad 3 one either, but a quad 4 is a massive resume wart. You got to avoid that entirely. And this was, the committee will look back and see 85-72 in this outcome. We had a weekend with a lot of interesting results. This one is as notable as any to me here. Tyrese Hunter, 4 points. PJ Haggerty continues to be a really, really good scorer. He had 29, but I think for Memphis to be the best version of itself, GP, Hunter's got to be the most impactful player, and he was not there. Credit, though, to Arkansas State for getting this done. Sun Belt has made a habit of this in recent seasons, I guess. You had James Madison doing what it did last season in the tournament, and then remember it won at Michigan State as well. But yeah, 12 made threes for the Red Wolves. These schools, as you well know, but people might not realize, they're not that far apart. Like, I think you tell me they're like an hour from each other.
It's a little more than an hour, but it's a bus ride. It's somewhere between an hour and a half. Like it's not far at all from like downtown Memphis. From FedEx Forum, you're 3 minutes across the bridge, and then you're on your way to Jonesboro. So that's another reason I'm assuming, and I don't want to take anything away from Penny for being willing to do the game, but I do think geography matters here. You don't have to pay a bye game opponent as much if they can bus to your arena as opposed to fly. So it might have been a great opportunity for Arkansas State and a good way for Memphis to get a bye game with a quality opponent that you don't have to pay as much as you might have to go pay somebody, say, if you want to go get Long Beach State, I bet it costs a little more to bring them here than it does the Red Wolves from Jonesboro.
You peeked at Memphis' schedule?
Of course.
Well, here's why this is problematic. The loss at home, and the next 2 are on the road.
That's right.
At Clemson, that's a tough. Now, if you win it essentially like cancels out the Arkansas State loss, in my opinion. And then you're at Virginia, not a good Virginia team, but you're going on the road. So those are the next 2 upcoming, and then they've got Mississippi State and Ole Miss coming into Memphis there. Man, UConn's got a tough December, and I really think Memphis and UConn, 2 teams in Maui, probably have the most challenging Decembers of anyone. Huskies fans, will get to you momentarily there. Oregon, UCLA. You mentioned Oregon's knocked from the ranks of the undefeateds. It was a classic Big Ten affair. Oh, by the way, this game was on Big Ten Network. Again, my body is not ready for this. Like, instinctively, I was looking, I was like, okay, what channel is this on? And I did not even think in the first 5 options that it was Big Ten Network. Nevertheless, thank you, YouTube TV, for autofilling that. Jackson Shellstad hits a top of the key 3-pointer with 9.8 seconds to go to make it a 71-70 Oregon lead. Oregon's playing at home here. And then Dylan Andrews, I think says we have the clip. Not if we got to play it. I'm going blind here.
Here's Andrews. He slips. Biddle on him. To go. Step back. And he banks it in with .4.
GP, that's a 15% success rate at best, that shot.
Oh, I think probably lower. Like, you could stand him out there and say, try to bank one in again and don't even guard him. And it's harder than he made it look with that. That's such a congrats to UCLA. Congrats to the greatest coach in UCLA history. But that's such an awful way to lose a game. I don't mind when Steph Curry comes off a screen and just drains one on you. What are you going to do? Or when LeBron gets big. But having somebody bank in a 3 after slipping seems unfair.
That's why I love college hoops, though, right there. If you're listening and didn't see it, do seek out that shot there. Kind of nuts. 8-1 for UCLA. Good result for the Big Ten, broadly speaking, because UCLA gets a really nice win. Oregon takes its first loss of the season. It is 9-1. We don't have audio or video of Cronin afterward, but basically within 90 seconds of the game ending, our buddy Andy Katz,
who interviews Andy Katz is at every game. He's at every.
He was with me at the UConn Baylor game a few days ago. He was at Gonzaga, Kentucky. He was at the Washington game before that. It's insane.
I think there's more than one Andy Katz.
You know what? I think you might have a.
Because I cannot watch a game. I can't tell you the last time I watched a game and didn't within 5 minutes see Andy Katz interviewing the winning coach immediately afterward. And it doesn't matter where the game's at. They could have a ACC challenge in Shanghai and Katz would be there with Damon Stoudemire. It's unbelievable. I never seen somebody attend so much stuff.
How many clones of Andy Katz are there, and what's the government not telling us?
Well, I think there's at least 7, because I don't know if you noticed this today. Right before he posted an interview with Mick Cronin, he was talking to Dennis Gates at Mizzou Arena. Now, how do you do that? How
the
are
truth
you at
is
Mizzou
out there,
Arena?
and so is Andy Katz.
How are you at Mizzou Arena in the afternoon, and then on that horrific court up in Oregon at night?
Hey, you know what? That court is an improvement. It's better. It's better.
I'll be the judge of that.
Cronin anyway. So Katz is doing the interview, 4 hours after he had left Missouri, and or even if that, and so Katz says something along the lines of, "You're 2-0 on the Big Ten or whatever," and then Cronin literally looks at the mic flag. He goes, "I just noticed your microphone. We're in the Big Ten." And as Katz is trying to cue him up on the win, he goes, "I was playing golf when they told me that a couple of years ago. The game is on the Big Ten Network, and Cronin is just crapping all over it. God bless this man. It was an amazing moment post game. He was like, "Yeah, I was golfing when they told me they were completely disintegrating our league and uploading us and shipping us off to the Big Ten. This is what happens after his player hits a buzzer beater."
Oh, the conference realignment stuff it's all coming home already. UCLA doesn't understand why it's on the Big Ten Network, and the SEC is complaining about their conference being too hard. Well, you're the ones who brought in Texas and Oklahoma. You're the one that brought in Oklahoma to beat Alabama. You did this. This is you. You did this.
That's a shame. Well, that's good stuff right there. Okay, let's tour around here. Marquette. We got Kam Jones in the thumbnail of this episode on YouTube. 51 second half points in the Dairy State duel presented by Egg Bowl Bedlam.
I don't like that, by the way. I don't like how you just went ahead and put your own spin on that.
Well, that was my recommendation. You're trying to crib from other rivalries there, so we're going to combine both.
It reminds me of the time I left to go get my wife coffee after our second child was born. Mm-hmm. And when I came back,
she named him. I know.
She named my kid. She my kid got a second middle name while I went to get coffee. I didn't think that was fair.
You know what that middle name was? Farmageddon. People don't realize.
It was not. She just threw an extra name in there. Just try to slide it past me. That's what I feel like you're trying to do. This is Egg Bowl Bedlam. Period. It's Egg Bowl Bedlam.
Well, it was not that on Saturday. Marquette wins 88-74. Kam Jones, your little homie from Memphis. He's not that little, by the way. I feel like you're selling him short, literally.
No, my little homie is not in stature. It's in age.
Okay.
It's not about stature. It's an age.
Why can't he be your young homie from Memphis?
He could be. He could be my young homie from him. But I'd rather. I think it rolls off the tongue a little better.
He went down in Egg Bowl Bedlam lore. 32 points, 6 assists, 4 steals. Marquette gets a good win. It offsets its loss against Iowa State. No shame in that, but a good week for the Golden Eagles there. Staying in the Big Ten, or the Big East. Hell, eventually maybe all these teams will be the Big Ten. UConn wins 76-65. Goes down to Texas. The rare SEC team that can't get it done on its home floor. Alex Karaban, 21 points, 11 boards, 4 assists. Solo Ball had 16 points on 4 made threes. Samson Johnson and Terrace Reed each had 12. Hayden Mahaney did not score in this game after having obviously a good showing previously. And then Hassan Diarra had 11 dimes. This was a soup to nuts victory, no doubt about it. We had a couple soup to nuts kind of victories, but UConn looking confident, playing well. Texas still did average more than 1 point per possession on offense there, but the defense incrementally continuing to get better. Trey Johnson looked good. He had 24. He was like holding his teammates accountable, which I actually kind of love to see from the freshman there. He's going to be a top 10 pick in my opinion. Arthur Kaluma had 20. No one else on Texas did anything there, but another good win for UConn, which has been able to beat Baylor and Texas, and now Gonzaga waits on Saturday. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, we're in a wildly different place with UConn today than we were a week ago. We're talking just about basketball. We're talking about good basketball. I don't know for sure if we'll get back to, and the Huskies are back in the top 5 again. Like, we maybe, I don't know. I say that honestly, but I give a lot of credit to that staff it can be unsettling when you spend months thinking a certain way about yourself. And then just like that, it's like, hold up, you ain't who you think you are. You spent this whole time thinking you was something that you're not. Now, how do you handle it? Now, how do you get this fixed? These things can sometimes go the wrong way. Every coach likes to think when you have a bad stretch that we just got to get back in the gym. We'll get better. They all say it. We got to get back in the gym. We got to refocus. We'll get better. We got to get back in the gym. We got to work. I got to get my guys ready to play. We'll get better. They don't all get better. Sometimes this stuff just stays bad, gets worse. And what we're watching right now is a UConn staff that has stabilized things, added 2 wins over likely NCAA tournament teams. And given that they were 25th in the AP poll last week, they'll move up this week and start heading back in the direction we all thought they were going to be when we started this thing.
Yeah, that's a good start to December here. You beat Gonzaga on Saturday, then it's a whole new conversation. But if that doesn't happen, at least at minimum, you've got these 2, which is a good turnaround there. No surprise to see Hurley and that staff make that happen there. Texas, I don't know. Credit to UConn for showing up and being ready. Texas was lethargic. I don't know. It didn't look well organized. Other game of note on Sunday, Duke won 76-65 at Louisville. Now, Louisville was up by like 12 or 14 in the first half and actually looked like they might have a shot at this thing. And then if you're Duke, the really inspiring thing is the fact that Cooper Flagg had foul trouble. He had 4 fouls. And I think for the entirety of the stretch that he was on the bench, Duke went on an 18-2 run without him out there, which is, Louisville might not be a tournament team, but whatever. You're on the road in league play and you don't have the presumptive number 1 pick in the NBA draft and you go on an 18-2 run and flip the game. That is a big time development there for Louisville. Flirting with 6-3, instead you're 5-4. You got the season-ending injuries. You got a shortened roster. It's tough to let that one get away, especially because it could be 2+ years before you get Duke back in your building again.
On one hand, if you're a Louisville fan, it's not last year anymore. So, we're good. Tell me if this would frustrate you or cause concern. I don't mean to use that word again. No. Let me ask you, would this bother you? We are looking around the country, it feels like every day, and we're watching, hey, look, I don't know if Northwestern's that good, but they just upset Illinois at home. Man, I don't know if Mizzou is that good, but they just upset Kansas at home. You're Louisville. You've got a Yum Center. You've had Tennessee in there. You've had Ole Miss in there. You've had Duke in there already, and you've lost all 3 games by double digits. You ain't putting up the same type of home fight that other quality teams in other buildings that historically can provide big advantages. You're not getting done what all these other schools are getting done. Does that bother you?
They would be bothersome. I was not in on Louisville as a tournament team the way that I know Cardinals fans were, even when being healthy. Didn't love the offense. That is coming to bear at this point. Team is not good from beyond the arc whatsoever. And it can't be just Terrence Edwards Jr., who I really, really like, and Chucky Hepburn saving the day there. They're going to need more than that. But yes, you bring up a good point. And maybe you want to get this one out of the way this season if you're not going to be great, but you don't even get Kentucky in your building. They got to play at Rupp Arena later this month. So good observation by you. They haven't been able to do it yet. Give Pat Kelsey time, but I do think this is going to be a take your lumps kind of season. Let me tour through a bunch of results, and then you take it where you want. Rhode Island is still undefeated. That game was on CBS Sports Network on Saturday. They won 69-63. Good on URI for getting that done. GP had that in the Final Four and won. Rhodey is 3-11 in his last 14 against Providence, but they got a big one there. Sebastian Thomas had 19. Jaden House off the bench at 18. And David Green remains to be a very good player for Rhode Island as well. That's a real player in an A10 that I think's got a real healthy chance of being a multi-bid league there. So good on URI to beat Providence. The Friars could not pull together back-to-back wins in a spot where they kind of needed it. They beat BYU. That was good. That was at the dunk. And now here they can't get it done in Rhodey's house. Michigan State, just want to note, they beat Nebraska 89-52. That game was not at Pinnacle Bank. Sparty is 8-2, and they have defeated Minnesota and Nebraska. Might not be good teams, but they are by a combined 55 points. Michigan State might be cruising a smidge. It's hard to, when you're Tom Izzo and you're Sparty, it's hard to really cruise under the radar. However, they might be better than a lot of people are acknowledging at this point. It's going to take another notable win or two. They did go 2-1 in Maui, but 89-52. I see you, Sparty. Good job there. Purdue beat Maryland 83-78 at Mackey. Braden Smith 24-10. Just a casual day at the office. Trey Kaufman-Wren continues to be a really, really good player. He had 21-8. Derek Queen had 26-12. He is building himself into arguably the most productive freshman in the country. I like Maryland a lot as well. Couldn't get it done at Mackey. No shame in that. They kept it close there. Purdue gets right after taking a loss previously. St. Mary's won 72-63 over Utah. The Gale, talk about teams that are quietly good. Gales are 9-1. And between that and Washington State, which beat Boise State, it was I talked to Raftery before the UConn game because he called it last week. He had never called a game in Boise. This game was not on Boise State's campus, but he checked one off of the old bucket list there. Washington State is 8-2 as well. Boise State is a letdown. I had them as a preseason top 20 team. That was a very much that's a miss on my behalf. I'll own it up right here. You know, I'm good for that.
That one's on me. I was wrong.
Yeah, Boise State's got to put it together, and it can't. They got to play better than they have been. Washington State is a first-year coach, David Riley, and he doesn't even have a fully healthy roster there. But the WCC really might be a 3-bid league there. And then you mentioned Illinois. Good on Northwestern. That building, I was talking to someone that was going to the game that night, and Northwestern plays in the perfect size venue for what that program is. It's an awesome, awesome place. They win 70-66 on Friday. Actually, shouts to Penn State as well. We haven't recorded a show since Thursday morning. Penn State, as we warned you, was very possible. Penn State win and won at home over Purdue. That's a good win, obviously, for the Nittany Lions there. And then the Big Ten continued to make noise on Friday night with Northwestern 70-66 over Illinois. And that's just what the Wild, talk about identity early in the show, GP. Northwestern, if you're not following the program on like a day-by-day, week-by-week basis, you might not be as aware of it. But that is a spot where even though Big Ten teams that go into play there because it's based in Chicago, Northwestern sometimes has to deal with 25, 35, 40% of the fans in the building being for the opposing team. They got something good going on there, and they are good to knock off a team or two or three that is ranked and highly ranked every single season. So a good win for a Northwestern team, which we're still kind of waiting on seeing. And then last one for me, GP, and again, take it wherever you want with any of these. Arguably the best scene of the weekend happened Saturday morning and then into afternoon. St. John's beat Kansas State 88-71. Zuby Ejiofor had the best game he's had in a Johnny's uniform, 28 points, 13 boards. He was really, really good. Kadari Richmond had 13-6, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. He had himself a good game. And then RJ Lewis and Wiltshire were good. But Rick Pitino getting it done, going to a tailor, seamstress, whatever. He said they had 5 people on the staff looking to see if they could find one of these Carnesecca sweaters, which obviously he bought the thing in like 85. It's hideous. There's no way that this thing was findable, obviously. And so they make a pretty close looking replica. He comes out, he's got his blazer on first, then he flashes it. Kind of like similar to how Big John Thompson did in the famous sweater game between Georgetown and St. John's back in the day. Tosses off the blazer, coaches the whole game in this thing. I actually thought the sweater didn't look that half bad on him. St. John's pulls away. Credit to Jerome Tang, who also, and by the way, Tang's a listener to the pod. We're not going to take credit for it, but it wouldn't shock me if he listened to the pod and then it got him even over the edge. He had this, It almost looked like a purple mohair sweater kind of thing. I don't know what it was, but it was awesome for him to do that as well. And then afterward, Pitino said he would the sweater. He laid the sweater down at midcourt at the end of the game to retire it, and he said the sweater will now rest in peace, just as Lou Carnesecca will. The memorial service was the day before the game. Chris Mullen, Mark Jackson, Walter Berry, Bill Wennington, they were all there. They were all in attendance there. And a very, very, very emotional week in Queens and on that campus, particularly in the 24 hours surrounding that game. Pitino said he would not have forgiven himself if St. John's didn't win it. I'd love to see him in the sweater again, GP, but he said he's retiring it. When Carnesecca did this, he wore the sweater originally because he had a brutal cold, and his wife was like, just wear a sweater to the game. He wore it. And then he kept wearing it because they kept winning. They won like 12 in a row. Pitino's not going to duplicate that. But regardless, an awesome scene in Queens on Saturday morning.
Yeah. Rick looks sharp in anything. He's just a sharp guy, you know?
True.
So I wasn't surprised that he looked sharp. I always assumed that he will. I loved it. I loved everything about it. Louis was a massive figure in the history of college basketball. Like, you don't have to be a St. John's fan or a Big East fan, or really even of a certain age, to know that there's a person in Carnesecca who was important in the sport. And I think most of us, if we live on social media the way we do, probably saw the billboards around New York City over the past week. Those were terrific and seemed like everybody appreciated them. And, you know, I know you got a million assistants and ops people, but like, there's a million things going on in a basketball week. You don't necessarily have time to be looking for clothes, and for them to prioritize that. And I know he's got other people doing it, but to prioritize it, to make it, hey, this is important to me. This is important to us. We need this to happen. And then for Tang to join in, I thought was beautiful. I just like, to your point, I woke up on Saturday morning. I was here with my kids, and, we were able to just, I turned on the TV and I was like, let's just watch this. We could change the game once it gets going, but let's appreciate what we're watching right now. And we got to have a little bit of I gave my kids a little history lesson.
Yeah, that's it was really, really cool stuff. We'll see if the Johnnies can continue their winning ways here. That was also an important win for them. K-State kind of battling through it just a little bit there. Before we look ahead to Monday and Tuesday, anything else off of any results you want to pontificate on?
Just, you mentioned Purdue. I can't go a whole episode of the On College Basketball podcast without mentioning Purdue as well. I just love, like, they've taken some bumps. You know, they've got 2 losses so far. One's at Marquette, nothing shameful about that. The other one at Penn State. I think they were just a little bitty underdog in that game, or maybe even a little fade. It wasn't. I'm just saying, when you hear about unranked Penn State upsetting Purdue or beating Purdue, that, like, it sounds like a bigger deal than it is. Like, Penn State's quality, and it was on the road and what. But to schedule this aggressively the year after you're losing the 2-time Wooden Award winner and be managing it okay, they're going to be better off for this. And I think Matt was in the locker room with his team maybe after the Ole Miss game, and they had cameras in there. I just remember seeing this somewhere, and he was like telling his team, this is why we play these games, because when we get in the NCAA tournament, this is what the teams look like. This is what they feel like. You know, they're big, they're strong, they're old, they're good. And, I mean, we're barely a month in, and Purdue's already been on a court this season with Alabama, Marquette, NC State, Ole Miss, Penn State, Maryland to start Big Ten play. Next up, another top 25-ish team from the SEC, A&M. After that, it's Auburn, which is currently number 1 at KenPom. And after that, it's the rest of it's the last 18 games of a Big Ten schedule. So they are really challenging themselves. Their overall strength of schedule right now is top 15 in the country, and they're doing well. I just like that they were willing to go down this path the year after losing Zach Edey. Not every coach would. And B, they're showing themselves to be exactly what a lot of us thought they would be, which is way bigger than just a team that rode an incredible college basketball player, one of the best in the modern era, to back-to-back Big Ten championships and a trip to the national title game. This is one of the best programs in America, and to lose that guy schedule this way and then do this against this schedule, that's all good stuff.
Agreed. Let's look ahead to Monday and Tuesday. Monday is light fare. Speaking of the Big Ten, remember, finals are basically going on across the country now. So this is going to contribute to a lighter schedule this week. Minnesota at Indiana is pretty much it on Monday. And that's just worth the tune-in factor because Indiana eventually pulled away from Miami, or was it Ball State? I was checking in on it here and there. I'm bringing it up right now. It was Miami, Ohio. They won 76-57, but the game was, I mean, it was to the point. I just so happen to have a couple of buddies who are Indiana fans. I'm bringing up. Here's what it was like on Friday, 8:33 p.m. One of my buddies texts, is there at least a small chance Woodson is fired if they lose to Miami tonight? 18.5 point favorites in parentheses. And I said, there's a 0% chance. He said, damn it. Okay, go Indiana. And they wound up pulling away. But the point is, like, they've just put themselves in these spots here, and now they host a Minnesota team that's probably not that good. So if nothing for the potential train wreck factor, that's it on Monday. And then Tuesday, you've got the Jimmy V. It's actually the least compelling. I say this objectively. It's just the least compelling Jimmy V we've had in a while here because Miami is down. Tennessee, Miami is at 6:30 Eastern. Miami has lost 6 games in a row. And this is a Miami team that really just fell off a cliff last season. Tennessee could be your number 1 team in the country. We'll see if that can be competitive. I don't know. Larinaga and Barnes, by the way, go back a very, very, very long time. So if anything else, those two could get in a room and tell stories for weeks. And then Arkansas, Michigan is at 9. Now that game has got some compelling stuff there. Michigan was able to escape Iowa 85-83. The Wolverines, they're looking quality so far. They're 8-1. The only loss is by 2 to Wake Forest. They have wins recently over Xavier, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And now they get an Arkansas team that is 7-2. Cal's group, they were in a little bit of a battle with Texas San Antonio over the weekend. They wound up winning comfortably there. But Arkansas does not yet have a resume win. It doesn't have a notable win. It doesn't have a win over a top 90 opponent. That's your 9 o'clock tip on ESPN on Tuesday. You've also got Penn State at Rutgers. You know, Rutgers has lost 3 in a row, GP. It's 5-4, and this is about as must win as you're going to get in December. Like, it doesn't have an NCAA tournament resume yet. Now, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, they're so much fun to watch, but we might have an LSU Ben Simmons situation here where you've got, you know, this incredible talent and the team might not even sniff the tournament. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see
Anthony Edwards, Georgia.
Correct. I hope that's not the case, but the point is Penn State's coming off the win against Purdue at home. Now they're on the road. This is Tuesday night in Piscataway. That's a hell of a game and a rather urgent one. And the other one in the Big Ten is Wisconsin at Illinois. We mentioned what happened with both of those teams. So that's your viewing guide for the next 2 nights.
Yeah, I agree with you. Not that compelling Jimmy V doubleheader, but I think Michigan Arkansas is really fun.
It's good.
Only because
both games usually have something to them. This one
is just. But yeah, the first game is I expect Tennessee to do what.
I'll put it this way too. There's a chance that only 2 of the Jimmy V teams wind up in the tournament. I wouldn't say it's more likely than not, but we got to see what Arkansas is going to do, right? You know, and Michigan's off to a good start, but we'll wait and see on that. Tennessee, we know they're good.
Tennessee has beaten everybody they played by at least 15 points. I suspect this will be something similar. And then we get the nightcap, and I know it's not 2 ranked teams, although I do believe Michigan will likely be ranked.
Has to be ranked.
I've got them in the top 20 pretty safely. So I think Michigan will have a number next to its name. But you know, candid coaches over the summer, who's going to be the best hire? And it was John Calipari by a pretty wide margin. And now we might be in a situation where come late Tuesday night, Kentucky fans will be going, our first-year coach is better than John Calipari. And Michigan fans could be saying, well, we just beat John Calipari with our first-year coach.
I'm bringing it up right now. They were the 2 top vote getters. So just a quick flashback here. Again, we polled 100-plus coaches, some very prominent high major D1 coaches and some second and third assistants in 1 big league. So you have no idea.
Absolute nobodies. Some absolute
nobodies. How dare you? How dare you? Who is the best high major coaching hire of 2024? John Calipari was first with 43.4% of the vote. Dusty May was second with 21.7%. They face each other Tuesday night. Mark Pope was a distant third at 8.5%. Pat Kelsey was fourth. Kevin Young from BYU fifth. And then Kyle Smith from Stanford sixth. Coaches that are off to a solid start that were not in the upper tier. Chris Holtman at DePaul doing a good job. Steve Lutz at Oklahoma State's actually doing a pretty solid job right now. Darren DeVries has done okay. But it was Cal, easy number 1. Dusty May, easy number 2. And their teams will square off.
And like, I don't know where Arkansas fans are at yet, but I can just very quickly see them getting to this place where Kentucky fans lived after a while, which is I could see Kentucky fans. If this doesn't go, Arkansas fans, it's still confusing. Yes. I could see Arkansas fans. Like, there was a time a few weeks ago doing the top 25 and 1, and I wrote about a Kentucky something, and I started just writing about John Calipari. I was just writing, and I was like, what am I doing? I was like,
not for editors, even if
I was like, and this is the first something since and I was like, hold up, I got start over, delete. John Calipari's got nothing to do with this. It's still confusing. I can see a point where Arkansas fans get if this thing doesn't go well on Tuesday night, and I don't mean to make a random Tuesday night game in December bigger than it is, right? But
these results mean something on the resume, man.
Well,
don't get me wrong, SEC, you're gonna have so many chances.
Yeah, but I could this is what I'm trying to say. I'll just say it and stop. I can see Arkansas fans going, hold up now. Michigan got a brand new coach and had to basically start from scratch. Kentucky got a brand new coach and had to start from scratch. Neither one of them built rosters as good as the roster our NIL built. And if you don't believe us, go check every human ranking in the preseason. They all had Arkansas better than Michigan, better than Kentucky, because Arkansas had the first-year coach with quite clearly, undeniably, the best roster. So why are we –
And most expensive.
So why are we not as good at Kentucky, and why did we just lose to Michigan? I could see that on a message board somewhere.
Well, that might be our opening segment on Wednesday's show. We'll see, or maybe Arkansas shows up, runs them by 20, and we got.
There you go, and then we're talking about something completely different. Isn't that the joy of the sport?
It is indeed. I believe that is a show.
I hope so. Shouts to Devin Downey. Is that a Topo Chico?
Come on, man. This is the best seltzer on the market.
Topo Chico?
Big time.
My wife loves those.
Big time. Going with a blueberry tonight, but yes. Oh, huge. Love it.
Yeah,
Discovered it like a year ago. I was way late to the party. Just incredible. Yeah.
People like Topo Chicos.
Big time stuff right here.
It is big time stuff. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe. Anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.